This episode may contain adult themes and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised.
Sorry.
What's the trick in making my love stick? What's the trick?
Hello, and welcome to the Film Critic and the Common Man podcast. Other film podcasts might assault criminals. We have a strict rule to only assault women beaters. Every episode, we discuss a film from the perspective of a film critic and the perspective of a common man. We may not agree, but it certainly won't be boring. I'm your co-host, Ben Miller. I write about films for my own site, Ice Cream for Freaks, and a member of the North Texas Film Critics Association, as well as the International Film Society Critics. You can hear me guest on other pods as the David Thewlis of podcasting. I am joined by my brother and common man co-host, a man who just wants to retire to Arizona with a prostitute, Jake Miller. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. How about you?
So, as you can tell, we're not actually looking at the camera for a change because we're actually in the same room. We never get to be in the same room. So it'll be a nice little change of pace to actually talk to each other as opposed to
I feel like we kind of have like proof of life that we're actually brothers.
Actually, yes, I do the same thing with film critics. Anytime I see them in real life, it's like, look, I'm not just an internet presence. Yes,
Right. Yeah. We
actually do have some interaction. So today we're going to talk. So last week we talked about Cool Hand Luke, Jake's favorite movie. Today we're going to go into my essentially favorite movie. We're talking L.A. Confidential, directed by Curtis Hanson, written by Brian Helgeland and Curtis Hanson, based on the novel by James Ellroy, starring Kevin Spacey, Russell Crowe, Guy Pearce, and Kim Basinger, co-starring James Cromwell, David Strathairn, Simon Baker, Ron Rifkin, and Danny DeVito. Opened on May 14th, 1997 at the Cannes International Film Festival. Went wide on September 19th, 1997. Pretty good box office considering the type of film it is. 64.6 million domestic, 61 million international, 126.2 million on a $35 million budget. Pretty solid for the time. Not the biggest moneymaker of the year because Titanic came out in 97, so understandable. Did get 9 Oscar nominations: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actress for Basinger, Adapted Screenplay, Art Direction, Cinematography, Film Editing, Dramatic Score, and Sound. It lost 7 Oscars to Titanic.
Oh, geez.
And then the other 2 won Supporting Actress for Basinger, beating Titanic, and then Adapted Screenplay, which Titanic was not against. So,
Right.
So very.
This is a tough year to be in the movie business,
and
really.
It's not only, you think, okay, yeah, we're going against Titanic, but you're also going against Good Will Hunting and As Good as It Gets.
Oh, yeah.
So, and the Full Monty. So that's the Best Picture 5. Full Monty, As Good as It Gets, Good Will Hunting, Titanic, and LA Confidential. So,
It doesn't seem like we've had years like that in a long time.
No, like where
you just got bangers.
About this, like there's like these 5 are unimpeachable, and there's not really even other great movies. You can't really you're not incurring in on this crazy lineup. Very well respected by pretty much everybody. 99% from critics. I want to find the douchebag critics who are just like, no, this is not a perfect movie. And it's like, you're lying. 94% audience. A very modern noir, essentially a movie that feels like it was made in the 50s, but has all the sensibilities of the 90s. So this is your first time watching.
Yeah.
So I will do a quick plot summary of what's going on in LA Confidential. Set in 1953 Los Angeles, is very post World War II. A lot of probably soldiers coming back and finding jobs to be cops, probably.
Yep.
Kind of get that idea of it. It focuses on 3 guys. Edmund Exley, played by Guy Pearce, a kind of a straight-laced, politically minded ladder climber, a good cop, but kind of a greaseball,
suck ass.
Yeah, that's a really good way to
kiss
put it.
ass. Yeah,
kiss ass. He's trying to climb his way up the ladder, live up to the expectation of his father, who was a police officer who was killed in the line of duty. There's the second one is Bud White, who is Russell Crowe. He's a plainclothes police officer, more of a goon type policeman, but he's more of a
he's a strong arm.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So he doesn't necessarily he kind of has the desire to do like casework and detective work, but he's kind of pigeonholed into this idea of just being
the tough guy.
Cop. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then we have Jack Vincennes, who is played by Kevin Spacey. He's a narcotics detective, but he moonlights as a technical advisor to a Dragnet type show called Badge of Honor. He's kind of as corrupt of the three. He's the most corrupt, but he's still not really all that corrupt. He just takes money. He exchanges money with a tabloid guy, Sid Hutchins, who is for good callers, and then he has high profile arrests for his thing back and forth. So all three are kind of interacting, and then there's a White doesn't like Exley because of he rats on this cop who beat up a group of Mexicans. And it's his,
at a drunken Christmas party, and they just go down to the jail.
You know, as one does whenever you pour 2 bottles of liquor into the eggnog during Christmas party.
At a police department,
as one is to do. So White doesn't like Exley, and Exley is kind of, I guess, serendipitously is the guy on duty whenever a massacre happens at a coffee shop, and one of the victims is White's old partner. And through this investigation, it kind of goes back and forth, and then the police chief comes in, which is played by James Cromwell. There's a kind of a porn pimp guy played by Theron, and then Kim Basinger is the prostitute kind of in the middle of it. Her name is Lynn Bracken, and Exley kind of runs, he kind of goes in line with that, but at the same time, White falls in love with her. And then there's some corrupt stuff back and forth. It's really all about finding out the corruption having to do with this. In the end, Vincennes is killed by Captain Smith, played by James Cromwell. And it all is due to them, the police, a group of police officers actually taking over the rackets of jail gangster Mickey Cohen. Both White and Exley kind of uncover it all and take everybody down, kill everybody, and kind of get away. In the end, Exley is kind of scapegoated as a hero, and then White and Lynn ride off into the sunset together. So there's a lot to this. Obviously, we've talked about cop movies in the past, but this being a cop movie set in the 50s, it's kind of like you kind of excise all the cop things you have because it's the 50s and nobody really knows.
Right. Whenever I was watching it, obviously the training, the techniques, the equipment, everything is completely different. So it's kind of, for me, it's entertaining to look back on those times. Yeah. Because I think this is probably like the 3rd or 4th episode where I've mentioned Anamoya. Where it's a nostalgia for a time that you've never been a part of.
Lots of revolvers.
Right. Snub-nosed 38s and
guys going around corners
fingers on the trigger and stuff like that.
The lack of accountability from police officers. There's like, oh, who did this? Well, it's obviously the minorities. Like, it's really kind of glazed over. But a lot of this is like, so the initial Night Owl killings are blamed on 3 black guys. Who are specifically scapegoated because, well, they have records and they did commit a crime. They were rapists and kidnappers, but they didn't murder everybody. It's like just because they, and all that kind of stuff. And then the Mexicans, obviously,
the Mexicans and off everything because two cops got roughed up or something,
and it's funny because
he says they're at home with like soreness or something,
and they're like, well, they lost an eye, and it's like, oh, I heard he punctured a lung. Like, no, he's fine. It's just an excuse to do that. So it's funny. The cool thing about the modern war is essentially it has all the feeling of 1953 Los Angeles. It looks like it in the background. But the cool thing about it, it's all in the background. It's not like it's those New York movies where like, oh, New York's a character. This is a character, but it's a background character. It's just the setting. It's not It's not. This is what it's about. It's like it's very specific. It's very cool looking. It's very nifty with all that kind of stuff. But is by no means the thing.
Right. Yeah. No, they do a good job of making the setting the setting.
Yes.
And that's all it needs to be.
And they throw in the cool LA stuff, the city
Sure.
hall, the Hollywood sign, movie premieres, all that kind of cool stuff.
Yep.
Now the cool thing about this compared to other noirs is obviously like noirs in the 50s and 60s, they have certain restrictions they can't be showing.
Yeah.
Now in this case, this is probably the more realistic aspect of what happened in 1950s
Oh, yeah.
Los Angeles. It's like, oh, everybody's boozing. There's all this.
Yeah.
Like the fact that marijuana addiction is a continued like, oh, these reefer heads. Like, come on. Like,
yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, I kind of think that, we have this idea of like the 50s of like, oh, Leave It to Beaver age and like
Greatest Generation.
Yeah. Well, people were doing the same screwed up stuff that they're doing today that they were doing back then.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's there's nothing's as wholesome as we think.
Yeah.
And that comes back to that anemoia.
Yeah.
Is oftentimes it's just a creation that we've developed in our heads.
Oh, it wasn't like this. It wasn't like this in the good old days. It's like, no, it probably was. You just have that.
Yeah.
Have that.
We dealt with the same problems. They just,
Yeah. Police corruption. Now, I made the joke at the end of the movie. It's like, the chief of police is like, the LAPD is going to move into the new buildings, and this is a new clean cut. And I made the joke that an LAPD will never have a problem again.
Scandal free after that.
Like, oh, the next 20 years won't be a problem. The next 20 after that's definitely smooth sailing too.
You don't have to worry about getting any bad media. Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. So we'll just kind of gloss over that part. So it's really easy to look at this movie as what it is now and knowing the familiar faces.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this, I don't know, like a 7 episode. And it's like, well, Kevin Spacey being in a movie, you're always kind
right.
of like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And this movie's surprisingly hard to find. I don't know why. Like it was really difficult to kind of find.
I can't imagine.
It was shocking for as well known and as popular as it is. But
yeah.
So the casting of this is probably the most brilliant part, not because of like Kim Basinger pretty much does look like Veronica Lake, so that's kind of in and of itself. But I mean, at the time, nobody knew who Guy Pearce and Russell Crowe were.
Right.
They were just like random guys, and also just perfect American accents.
Yeah,
like,
great.
Like Australia, their Australian does not come through in the least bit. Also, another Australian, Simon Baker, who plays the himbo actor who gets his throat slit.
Okay.
He's also Australian.
Okay.
His first movie. So I mean, the fact that they were able to dig these guys up,
and
we're going to throw them in these movies and be this good at as they are, it's really impressive. So I probably a couple months ago, I wrote an article about the top male performances in this movie, excluding the women, essentially. And I have an overwhelming number one for this movie. Who's your best performance in this movie?
I think I got to say, probably Guy Pearce.
Okay, so that was that's my number 2. Guy Pearce does some really interesting things because he, on paper, he should be the clean-cut hero of the story, and he's really a shit.
Yeah,
like there are a lot of things about him you're like, I don't like this guy.
Right.
Like he sleeps with Lynn for no particular reason, like just because he kind of can. And he is like you said, he's a suck ass and a climber and a do good and
and he's obviously, I think,
he's a good cop.
Yes. Yeah, he is. But old White, I mean, he's kind of a cop's cop.
Yes,
right.
Very much so.
He's one of the dudes.
Yep.
He's a member of the club.
Yes.
Whereas what's his name?
Vincennes or Exley.
Guy Pearce. He's very much more intellectual, looking to climb the ladder, get rank. Yes. And I mean, I I definitely know the guys at the PD
sure.
that are
we all
that
know,
are like that were
yeah.
like, that's fine, but you're not.
Don't
You're not one of the cool
Don't
kids.
act like you're a part of this. Yeah, and I think
Right.
I think it's really impressive, the ability to do that. And you know, it's kind of funny. The only thing that really links White and Exley is the fact that they don't succumb to corruption. Like they don't take any money. And White, in fact, so my number one is Russell Crowe, just because he's such a badass, but at the same time, he's so sensitive about his badassery. Like, he doesn't necessarily raise his voice a ton in this movie. He's very low and considered, and he's a simple guy. Now, it's kind of the film kind of goes out of its way to be like, yeah, he's a muscle. Everybody kind of thinks he's dumb, and he's not dumb. He's a very intelligent guy, but at the same time, his simplicity, like he wears the same ugly suit, the whole movie. His short sleeves, simplicity, like the fact that he has the Snub Rose revolver. He's more of a revolver shotgun guy, where Exley is more like, no, I'm going to have the pistol with the, you know, the more modern modernization of it. Yeah. So it's kind of one of those things where you're like, if you kind of go back into like World War II wise, you can kind of view it in the same way. Yeah.
And it's funny that you mentioned World War II, because I did think about that. And you said that earlier, like the period when I was at the police department, I worked with tons of veterans.
Everybody coming out of Afghanistan and Iraq. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so I would imagine 1950s police department, it's got to be filled with World War II vets and stuff like that.
And you think of like White as more of like, oh, you're an infantry guy, right? You're boots on the ground and doing all that stuff. And Exley's more like, oh, I'm the officer, but I'm too young because my dad was a captain and I worked my way up and I kind of greased the wheels. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if he's good at his job. It doesn't. Right. It's the fact that it's like, well, you don't know what I'm boots on the ground. I'm doing the stuff that I want to do. That I'm made to be doing. Yeah. So I talked about Guy Pearce. I talked about Russell Crowe. I love this movie almost more than probably any movie ever. Uh-huh. I've seen it a bunch. And every time I watch it, I go back and forth on whether Kevin Spacey is good. Whether he is good in this movie or if he is miscast. I can't tell. Do
you mean like his performance is good, or?
Yeah, is his performance good? Yeah, so because like today I landed on the good. Okay. I don't know why. Like, he's so self-loathing. He hates himself so much at what he does. But you know, his general, like, I buy all the self-loathing, like regret, all that kind of stuff. All the charm that's supposed to be there is kind of, that misses for me. Like yeah, I can kind of see it. It he's trying to be Dean Martin.
Yeah.
And I understand what he's doing. It just doesn't feel that organic. Like, it feels like he's trying.
Yeah. It doesn't land as solidly as some. I mean, it's like with Cool Hand Luke, like Paul Newman was cool.
Yep.
Right.
Just the way it is. Yep.
He didn't have to act cool.
Yep.
So I can see your point. Yes. Kevin Spacey trying to be a cool guy. But something I like about Spacey's character and his performance, you know, you talked about, you know, he loathes himself.
Absolutely.
He probably wants to be a better person than he is.
Yes.
And I like, he's having a conversation with
Exley, I believe.
Yeah. Exley. And Exley asks him why he became a cop, and he goes, I don't remember.
Yeah. And
that's it. But you could see that's not something
it's killing him. He's not happy about it. He's very like, I don't know why I became a cop. I don't know what I'm doing right now. I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Right. It's almost like there's like a mournful envy that he portrays, where it's like, I wish I was as idealistic as this guy still is.
Yeah. It's just like, he's like, oh, I became a cop because I wanted to solve, I want to stop.
I wanted to help people.
Like White's motivation is very clear. He wants to punish women who wants to punch men who hurt women. Bottom line, that's his motivation.
It's vengeance.
based off of his childhood experience.
Yep.
Exley, same thing. He wants to meet up to the expectations of his father and punish those who think they can get away with it. And
that's his big deal is I'm not going to let people get away with it.
And Vincennes is going, I've been doing this too long. I've compromised those inches you take have taken you too far away to compromise your morals. Now, like I said, today I land on it being good. On other days, I'm like, he's the worst performance in this movie. And it's just that, and every time it keeps switching on me. So I don't really, personal issues of the guy aside.
Sure.
Like he's the star of this movie for the sake of billing. He was the only name that
he was the only
one that could move tickets essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody else is kind of like, well, Kim Basinger at the time hadn't done movies in 3 years. Everybody like James Cromwell, who's essentially the villain, was in Babe 2 years before this and is in Green Mile 2 years after. So he bookends this villain of villains, just a corrupt piece of crap between two of the most wholesome people.
Yeah.
The warden,
most righteous,
the righteousness in the Green Mile, and the sweetest farmer in the world in Babe. So it's funny that Spacey is the kind of thing. So
he made a criminal sandwich.
The criminal sandwich. That's a good way to put it. So one of my favorite things about this movie, it was an Oscar winner for Best Adapted Screenplay by Helgeland and Curtis Hanson. I think of this movie as the most perfectly structured screenplay anytime I want to say like, okay, how do you structure a screenplay to do everything as it needs to be done without, and especially in this, because the last scene after the big fight and the climax is over, Exley is in the interrogation room and he lays out everything that happens in about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's, you go point by point. You're like, that is exactly everything that's happened. There's clear motivation.
It's almost a plot summary.
Exactly. It's a plot summary. Everything that has happened for this reason from here to here to here to here to here. There are no gaps. There are no reasonings. There's no reason. Not everything has a purpose. And then you go back and you like halfway through the movie, you have no idea that there are corrupt cops. Like you're halfway through and you're just like, oh, you just understand this. This is about these three cops doing these different things. And then it starts to piece it close to good. Now, is there any part of the actual, I know the idea of police trying to take over rackets for a gangster. I mean, it is the 50s and it's a story and it's a stretch. But is there any gap in here that you see? You're like, well, I didn't really buy that as a story structure because it's all pretty clear.
No, yeah. I mean, like you said, you don't really know. You don't figure out the corruption until about halfway through the movie. Yeah. But you kind of see, you kind of know where everyone lines up. Everyone kind of fits in their slots at some point.
Yes.
Everyone moves in to where you're like, okay, Russell Crowe, good guy. I don't know, Pearce. I don't know why I can't remember his last name.
I get it.
But okay, they're good guys, but they are flawed.
Yeah.
And Kevin Spacey's
much more flawed, but
and conflicted.
He wants to be good.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you're like, oh, okay, that the captain's bad. Oh, okay, this corruption ring. Okay. And like you said in that interrogation,
lays it out perfectly.
And you're like,
it's like everything, like, and seeing this multiple times, knowing that little bit at the end, watching it again, you're like, oh, there's the seed for that. That's where it happened. That's where this happened. And it's so beautifully played out. It's the Oscar win for the adapted screenplay is one of my favorites ever. It's just because it's like, if you're going to give it anything, going to be that. Now, that being said, one of the most scrutinized Oscar wins in the last 30 years is Basinger. Not because she's bad.
Really? Yeah.
Because I think she's really good.
Yeah.
It's just that the other nominees it's like, whenever you think of the film and the performances in the film, she's not the one that sticks out.
No,
she does great. She looks great.
Great supporting
role. A true supporting role.
Yeah.
Not a lead role that they made supporting. Other nominees in this category were Minnie Driver in Good Will Hunting. exceptional, I thought.
Yeah. That is a
Gloria,
good flick.
Gloria Stewart in Titanic, the old lady in Titanic.
Okay.
Yeah. So my personal winner would have been was Julianne Moore in Boogie Nights, a movie you haven't seen, I believe.
No, I haven't seen that.
We're gonna do that in a couple weeks, so that's gonna
Yeah.
that's gonna be an adventure, I guess.
An interesting one.
And the other one was Joan Cusack in and Out, which is comedy performance. Essentially, the 4 nominees, you look at it, and you're like, man, those are really good performances. And then you look at her, and you're like, that was good. Like,
Right.
It's not necessarily that she's bad. It's like
Yeah.
you're giving a B performance compared to the A pluses.
Yeah.
And
I can see that.
at the same time, I look at it as it's like, well, Spacey got an Oscar 2 years before this, and he's getting another Oscar 2 years after this. We don't know this at the time. So I mean, it's not like we need to give Spacey another Oscar.
Right.
And then Pearce and Crowe are brand new, and they don't really know what to
They're
do.
just
with
breaking
them.
in.
They don't know
Yeah.
what to do with them. And at the same time, like, where would you classify these 3 as lead or supporting? Because I mean, Kevin Spacey's number 1 bill, but he's probably the most supporting of the actors.
Really, Russell Crowe is really the main.
I would say Crowe. I would put Crowe and Pearce both in lead. They're
There's like dual protagonists.
there's 3 of them actually. All 3
Yeah, really, that's true.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that was another aspect to it. Like,
That is a cool aspect. I didn't think about that.
Who are you going to single out? It's like, oh, this is the one, and that's the point. Like, okay, well, I can't. Why Crowe? Well, he's good. What about Pearce? It's like he's good too. It's like, what about Spacey? He's good too. And
Right.
So I mean, that was just one of those things. It's like you probably weren't going to break into that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just kind of the weird part of it. Now, Basinger's character Lynn. Can you see a reason why she? If you think about it, this is the only slight quibble I would have with the movie if I have one at all. I don't think she has a reason to be in the movie. I mean, so if you think about it, if you take her out of the movie, does the plot change at all?
The plot doesn't.
Now the dynamics of how Exley and White go together.
That's what I was gonna say. Is really, I think her main purpose is to serve as a conflict point
Yes.
between your two of your protagonists.
And it allows White to be more sensitive.
Yeah, it brings out
bruising.
You learn why does he
Yes.
beat the shit out of
Yes.
these dudes
Yes.
and everything.
Yes. It's not just him spouting exposition. He's talking to a girl in bed. Like,
right.
but if you take her out of the movie, like,
You still have the same story.
like, and essentially at one point, like they take her to a sheriff's office because they think she's going to be tying up loose ends, and they go and Exley talks to her, and he's like, "Do you know anything about this?" She goes, "No." He goes, "Okay," and that's it. Like,
Yeah.
like, she gives no there. She's not integral to the plot as far
Yeah.
as Night Owl, any murders, corruption, any of that. She doesn't really have anything to do with it. Now,
She's just on the periphery.
she doesn't play a direct role.
Right.
Like, yes, she is the politicians having sex with prostitutes. She's the prostitute in that situation.
Yeah.
But she's not pulling any strings.
Yeah. She's definitely a part of the underworld, but she's
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
she's
she's just
by no means a big player.
It's always something that always makes me fun. It always makes me laugh. So I mean, okay, so cop corruption in general, like it seems like this is I think it's the ideal of American. When you want to make American cop films, they're like, okay, we got to have corruption.
Yeah.
Hero is non-corrupt, and it's
Right.
like, I'm not going to take money. And the one I kind of always default to is another
Scorpio.
what's that?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. So I default to American Gangster because Russell Crowe in that movie is a cop.
Oh, yeah.
His entire thing is that it's like, no, I know everybody's corrupt. I don't care about that. And I'm not going to take money. I'm not going to take any money. I'm not going to take any money. And it's always not going to take any money.
Yeah.
And the cool thing this movie does is it taking the money doesn't necessarily make you a bad person.
Right.
Like,
Well, I think it shows how there can be different motivations behind why people
Yep.
will do bad things
Yes.
other than money.
Yes.
You know, it's not always just for a payoff. You know, it might be for vengeance or power or sex or greed, whatever.
In Vincenzo's case, he likes
Mhm.
the attention, the Hollywood cop attitude of I'm important. It makes
Yeah.
him it's his own, it's ego boosting. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily
And that's how he makes his cases too.
yeah. I mean, I have the Hollywood aspect of it. I mean, you know, we live in a capitalistic society. Generally,
Yeah.
money gets the job done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's always been a lot of like, well, even the corruption's kind of based off of like, well, cops don't make enough money. They put their lives on the line.
Right.
It's a dangerous job.
Mm.
But now you've been lucky enough that you've been a police officer completely devoid of
Yeah.
even aware of any corruption. And I mean, Amarillo, Texas is not exactly being hotbed of
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I think I had the privilege of working at a very good department where, yeah, that wasn't really a concern. Yeah, I never witnessed an act of corruption. I never saw anyone take a bribe or anything like that. Now, have I seen guys goof up,
yes,
make poor judgment calls?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Absolutely,
It's the same as any job. I've seen knuckleheads fuck shit up, but it's not corruption.
It's the bell curve of humanity. It's
right. You're going to have guys that are going to screw stuff up.
You have that 5% of exceptionally good cops. You have that 5% of exceptionally bad cops, and everybody else is in the 90 in between, somewhere in that spectrum.
Yeah. And I'll say, like, I mean, even guys at the agency that I worked for, or girls that I thought were terrible cops and shouldn't be on the job at all, had no business wearing a badge. It wasn't because of a moral issue or anything.
Yeah,
like
it was
that.
just like
They
you're
were
just inept. Like it's just like any job.
you
Like,
got into the wrong line of work.
yeah, you get in for the wrong. It was like, why'd you get in this? It's like, well, I had a stupid guidance counselor, or I came out of this and did this, and that kind of led me here. And I said, all the kind of, and a lot of times, like you said, like veterans leaving, it's like, well, I this is kind of what I know.
Yeah.
Kind of keeping that same thing. So it's, yeah, I get that. So it's obviously just like the thematic material is always rich. Like, well, there's always a lot of stuff to do with that.
Right.
And that I'm really fascinated the more I think about those little inches to take to
Yes.
little compromises
Anytime you do something wrong, it becomes easier to do something wrong again.
Yes.
Anytime you do something good, it becomes easier to do the right thing again.
Yes.
So,
It's your momentum of whatever you're doing.
it's slippery slope.
Yes.
I mean, that's probably overused, but yeah, it's like, all right, if I can, I crossed that line and it was fine.
Yeah.
Cross this line, I'll put my toe across this line, and then before you know it, you're something you don't want to be.
Yeah.
So that is an interesting aspect of this. Yeah.
So there's a lot of that kind of stuff, and there's a ton of kind of stuff like that in this movie, and the cool thing I really like about this movie is how noirish it is without being like nobody talks like a gumshoe. Nobody like,
hey, see,
and
like more like Dick Tracy type stuff,
pointy fedoras,
right?
Like stuff like that. So, okay, so we talked a little bit about Mickey Cohen. Mickey Cohen, obviously being the real person with all this. I know you know a little bit about him, but I mean, kind of the Al Capone-ish of L.A.
Yep.
Johnny Stompanato is an interesting character because he plays a role in this. Johnny Stompanato is a real guy, was really Mickey Cohen's enforcer, and then did muscle work on the side. One of the comical parts of the movie is actually, and Vincenz goes to see Johnny Stompanato, and he's sitting there with Lana Turner. It's the real Lana Turner. Well, in real life, Johnny Stompanato was dating the real Lana Turner, and Lana Turner's daughter stabbed and killed Johnny Stompanato, and it was a huge media circus with the trial and everything, and she eventually got acquitted, but it essentially ended her career. So it was kind of interesting to be like, oh yeah, they're all nice and cozy together. Johnny Stompanato and Lana Turner. It's like he was beating the crap out of her. So there's kind of that little thing. Apparently, Bloody Christmas, depicted as the police officers beating the Mexicans, was based on a real thing as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just kind of those little notes of authenticity just kind of add to the allure of the film.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you see, like, guys, it's always funny seeing guys like with blackjacks smacking the hell out of stuff. Like, the idea of just no batons in this movie. Everybody has blackjacks or
that is true. Yeah. And for those that don't know, a blackjack is basically a piece of metal in a leather strap.
Yeah.
So it's wouldn't be fun to get hit with, but it definitely struck me, like, watching this is like, I can't imagine like going into an interrogation, someone smarts off, you just smack the fuck out of them.
It's like you say, I think whenever Exley was going in to interrogate, you're like, it's like, oh, where's the phone book? Because it's like,
right, yeah.
It's like, are you willing to beat the hell out of somebody to get a
and I mean, from what I know, that was interrogation techniques back then.
There's not a whole lot of subtlety involved in that. Yeah.
Right. There was much more, when I was a detective, obviously there was, little more subtlety.
Civil rights involved.
Yeah.
So I get like, so did you like how Exley that was a pretty cool scene. It was like, that kind of put on, everybody was kind of like, okay, Exley's a kiss ass, but that scene in general kind of like, oh, he's a kiss ass who's good at his job.
Yeah. I think he proves himself there, where he's like, he's not necessarily the big tough guy, but they're like, he can
smart.
do it with smarts.
He's going to get this guy. He's doing a great job getting these guys confessions.
And the technique he uses is one that I've used before. The prisoner's dilemma, where it's like, they said you did it.
You did it. It's like,
no, he did it.
He did it. Well, I'll tell you exactly how he did it.
Oh, you can watch Best Friends
turn on each other, whatever.
So everyone flips real quick whenever it's like, okay, you can do 20 or he can do 20. Which one do you want?
So can you imagine the sheer force of your hand strength to be able to break the top of a wooden chair like that? So like, I saw it, like,
you got to be mad.
and that's the great thing that Crowe does in this entire movie. He's incredibly, like, there's two parts. There's one where he breaks the chair, and then whenever he fights with Exley, and then he's like, get out of here, and he throws the chair through the window. I'm like, boy, but that felt nice. Like,
yeah. I will say, I mean, he definitely displays rage issues, anger issues, but as you get to know him, it's righteous anger.
Yes, it's purposeful.
Yeah, and it's not aimed at innocence.
Yes,
I mean he has a scene with Kim Basinger, but I think he realizes, I hate.
I don't want it. Yeah, exactly, and he hates himself for it.
He's like, I can't be like my dad. And So
speaking of Russell Crowe, every week I go through the filmography of a filmmaker and put Jake's cinematic knowledge to the test. It is time for Pull for a Dumbass. This week we're going to the large Australian man himself, Crowe, a Oscar winner, a long storied history of just being pretty great in everything he's ever been in. So he had a lot of early stuff in Australia. Obviously, we won't get into. A movie called Proof that I've never seen. I've heard a lot of good things about. The first movie I've ever saw, not the first movie I ever saw him in, but his earliest movie I've seen is a movie called Romper Stomper. It's an Australian movie about skinheads. And he is an exceptionally violent, volatile guy. And he's just a turd of a human, but he's so captivating. And he's incredible. If you get the chance to see Romper Stomper, I highly recommend it. Neo-Nazi movies in general, there's a lot of those type of movies.
Is it an Australian American History X?
Yes, kind of. That's a good way to put it. Yes,
okay.
Yes. Very, very well done. So the first movie, his first American movie was in 1995, playing the role of Court in The Quick and the Dead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it.
Love The Quick and the Dead. Good. I really like Quick and the Dead too. I like, I've defended it in the past. I wrote a little piece on it a couple of years ago. Really, a lot of fun. So much fun.
I love it.
Yeah, it's just like good old fashioned,
Yeah.
Western stupid stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't take itself too seriously.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't know what you'd have wrong with it.
A lot of people think it's a little too campy, a little too stylized for a Western. But I mean, Gene Hackman's having a blast. Like,
Yeah.
it's just all that kind of stuff. I love it all the way around. So he's in LA Confidential. 2 years after that, so he does a couple of things. Like he was in a one of those patented Denzel Washington 90s movies. This one was called Virtuosity. I'm not including that one. Virtuosity. This was one where like he lives in. I think he's a serial killer in virtual reality. It's a ridiculous movie.
No.
So I wouldn't include that. And then he was in LA Confidential in 1997. Essentially, after LA Confidential, like, okay, this guy's a star.
He takes
Make
off.
this happen. In 1999, I think LA Confidential was his best performance.
Mhm.
I think his second best performance got his first Oscar nomination in 1999 as Jeffrey Wigand in The Insider.
The Insider.
He is a tobacco whistleblower. Very good. He's Al Pacino plays a 60 Minutes producer, and he is a whistleblower with Big Tobacco.
Okay. Yep.
You've seen it, or you've heard about it?
No, I've seen it. It's just been a long time, and it wasn't very memorable.
Yeah, it's slow,
but I've seen it.
Slow and meditative. He's exceptional in it.
Yeah.
It's kind of the different kind of stuff like that. I wasn't going to include Mr. Alaska just because it's such a it's a hockey movie. They're like, hey, this guy's a star. We got to throw him in something, and it's like, not really.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2000 is really where it kicks off. Gladiator.
Of course.
Maximus Decimus Meridius, maybe the coolest human to ever live.
Oh yeah.
Gets his first Oscar win after the nomination the year before for The Insider. Same year, 2000. I think one of his most underrated movies as a hostage negotiator type, Proof of Life.
Yep.
I love Proof of Life.
It's funny that I said Proof of Life earlier.
I didn't even think of that, actually. Yeah, you're right. I love Proof of Life for a lot of reasons. He's really good in it. His chemistry with Meg Ryan is electric. And the reason is because it broke up Meg Ryan's marriage to Dennis Quaid, who Meg Ryan was married to Dennis Quaid, then she went and made Proof of Life. And then after Proof of Life, she wasn't married to Dennis Quaid anymore.
Well,
so,
what do you expect?
2000s Russell Crowe is showing up. I get it. I mean, it's real and spectacular. So he gets his third Oscar nomination the next year for the Best Picture winning film, which I don't think is very good. I rewatched it a little while ago. How about A Beautiful Mind?
Yes.
So I don't like it. I think it's a very badly made movie.
Really?
I rewatched it the other day because I was so last year I was doing Oscar catch-up movies from 20 years ago, which is 2001, and Beautiful Mind was on it, and I watched it, and I was like, okay, this is bad.
Really?
Did I think this was good? And I was like, I remember not really loving the movie and liking his performance. And his performance is not bad, but the movie is just not good. It's just boring and like too quirky. Like it's going way too hard. It's trying way too hard to be I don't know what it wants to be.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I mean, I know I've seen it at least 2 or 3 times, and I never remember having a negative thought about it.
I remember the last time I watched it, and I was like, man, it was cringy almost. I was thinking, I was like, man, this is not good. Obviously, teach their own. I'm not going to say like, oh, no, you're right, I'm wrong. Now, anybody says a bad word about this next one, a personal favorite of our grandfather, Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. Great movie. Great movie. That is probably one of the most underrated films. So Master and Commander is a series of books.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's like 8 or 9 of them.
Yeah.
And they were going to make a bunch of them. And they made Master and Commander Far Side of the World. It made money, but it didn't make enough money. So they didn't make more. Ship movies have to do Pirates of the Caribbean movie money.
Right,
to be profitable because they're really expensive to make. Master and Commander is great.
Man.
It's
yeah. I don't know much. Well, we might have to.
We
do
might
that
have to do
one.
Master Commander. Master Commander's awesome.
We might have to put that on the
I
list.
agree. I agree. That might be one we knock out in January. That's a
Yeah.
good one. He has a really great run of just like, man, he's solid in pretty much everything he's in. How about 2 years later playing boxer Jim Braddock in Cinderella Man?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Not surprising. A one that's a lot of people don't like, and I've never understood why people don't like it. Now Renee Zellweger is playing the ultimate wet blanket of wet blankets.
I don't like her.
I'm very mixed on Zellweger in general. But in like, this is the prime example of, with my wife, I call it The Longest Ride, which is a movie based off of, I think Scott Eastwood, Clint Eastwood's son, plays a rodeo guy. And this girl falls in love with him. And he's a rodeo guy, and that's what attracted to him. And then they got together, and she's like, "It's too dangerous. I want you to quit rodeo."
Right.
Well, the entire idea was that I was a rodeo guy. That without that, we wouldn't be together. And that's kind of what this movie is like. Like Braddock is a boxer. He's a championship boxer. It's dangerous and all this kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, his wife's like, "You got to stop this." Like,
right.
What do you mean? But
yeah,
Crowe is exceptional.
Well, it's like a conversation whenever I had to have with my wife whenever we started getting serious. Is like, listen, I'm a cop.
I'm a cop. This is what it is.
I'm going to be gone holidays, weekends. It's going to be dangerous,
Yes.
and take it or leave it right now.
You can't go. You can't 5 years in go like, "I want you to stop being a cop."
It's good.
Like,
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. So I mean, like that's the only part about the movie I don't like.
Okay.
But the boxing scenes are dynamic. He's great in it. Paul Giamatti got an Oscar nomination for it. Really, really great across the board.
One thing I will say, what was his name? Max Baer?
Max Baer. A very unfair portrayal of him in that movie.
Yes, I've heard that
I've heard that
because
as well.
he did actually accidentally kill a guy.
But it haunted him for the rest of his life.
He almost completely quit.
Yes.
He was never the same again.
Yes. And in the movie, he's depicted as like,
he's
it's
vicious.
It's a part of life. I'll kill you too. Like,
yeah. He's unfairly portrayed.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, in that, but it's a good movie
I
overall. I
good
like
flick,
it.
Good flick. Had a bomb movie called A Good Year about him owning a winery from his dad. We won't mention that one, but
no.
Two in 2007, which I know you are both big fan. You're a fan of both. How about the double feature of 3:10 to Yuma and American Gangster?
Yeah, I'll watch both of them.
Watch both of those.
Yeah.
3:10 to Yuma, much more of a Christian Bale movie than I do think of a Russell Crowe movie.
He's a bad guy in that one, which is yeah.
He's bad, but at the same time,
he's not the worst.
He's not the worst. He's not the worst.
Right. The creepy blonde guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So 3:10 to Yuma, and then American Gangster, as we said, the uncorruptible cop. Really, now American Gangster is a goofy movie to me because I love scenes. I love individual scenes. I love each performance, all this kind of stuff, and it just doesn't all work together.
But then all together,
all the way there, like it's a solid I'll watch individual scenes. I'm like, man, that's a great scene. Like when they raid the stash house, it's awesome. When they follow him for the thing, Denzel Washington killing Idris Elba on the street, awesome. All the stuff he did, everything works, and it just doesn't come together somehow. I don't know what the problem is. It just somehow it misses somewhere.
I would say, even though I thought Russell Crowe did a great job in it, and I think Denzel Washington did a great job in it, I will say they didn't like have much chemistry. I mean, they don't have many scenes together anyways.
Right, but I think there's I heard an interview with Ethan Hawke because he was talking about Denzel. And he said, if there's a bigger movie star in the world, I don't want to know it. And I think it's hard to be in a movie with Denzel Washington where you're supposed to be the star.
Right.
And I think it's difficult. Like
even stars can get starstruck.
Russell Crowe being in a room with Denzel Washington, it's just like, I think that's two alphas going at each other. And they're just like, it's not going to, somebody has to take a step back.
Right.
And I don't think either one of them would take a step back. I don't think either one did wrong.
Right. No.
But
that's a good way to put it. Two
Somebody
alphas is like, yeah, there can only be one bull in the corral.
Yeah, when Ethan Hawke goes toe to toe with Denzel in Training Day, he knows when to be like, Denzel's cooking. I got to let him go.
Right.
And he's like, I'm going to, even when I have my shots, I'm going to take my shots in my specific way. I'm not going to go Denzel big. Like, you have to see the spotlight. You're not going to overwhelm Denzel Washington.
Right.
So, I mean, that's probably a good way to put it. How about maybe the most underseen Leonardo DiCaprio movie, Body of Lies, from 2008. It is a CIA terrorism, war on terror type movie. I didn't think it was very good. Crowe is more of the guy in the office, and DiCaprio is more the guy on the ground. It's not a very good movie, and it's very unmemorable. It's probably the most unmemorable DiCaprio movie. So
yeah, there's sometimes I'm like, if I did see it, I don't remember it, so that can't be good for it. So
I wouldn't be surprised if you never saw it.
Yeah.
How about maybe kind of not the end of his days of being a leading man, but like the days where you're like, okay, his days are numbered as far as being an A-lister. How about 2010's Robin Hood?
Yes.
It's very mediocre. Just so there.
I didn't like it.
I didn't like it either. And there's a lot of behind the scenes production stuff that could have gone in a lot of different interesting directions. And it just decided to go the safest possible way. So not surprised.
Yeah,
now,
I didn't like it.
I know how much you love musicals.
You know it.
And but if you're gonna love a musical, why not have Russell Crowe be the one singing it to you? Have you seen Les Miserables?
No.
Okay.
No.
So Les Miserables in the last decade is the last Best Picture nominee that I have not seen.
Wow.
And I'm gonna watch it later in the month in order to complete my decade, essentially. But he is in it, and Les Miserables is one of those movies we talked about, like Hamilton, where everything is sung, and he's in it, and he has a gruff, kind of terrible, not great singing voice, even though he's been in a band for a long time. But I mean, I don't think he takes himself that seriously about it. But
I don't think I'm going to give it a try. I don't even think I'm going to try.
So despite him, I do appreciate his recognition to be like, okay, I'm not a leading man anymore, but I'm going to get in some interesting things, and I'm really going to bring the heat. Did you see Man of Steel, the Superman movie with Henry Cavill, the first one?
No.
So in Man of Steel, the two dads, everybody is a really great actor in Man of Steel. Henry Cavill being Superman, his dad on his alien dad is Russell Crowe. His human dad is Kevin Costner. And in both cases, they both bring the heat. They're both great. And he is really great as Superman's dad, alien dad. And he has it's kind of a plot device for him to still stick around and later off. So he stick around there.
I'm usually not, superhero comic into that, but that sounds interesting.
It's flawed. Like I said, Diane Lane's his Earth mom, Kevin Costner's his Earth dad. Russell Crowe's his alien dad. Michael Shannon's the bad guy. It does a lot of stupid things, but it's watchable.
Yeah.
How about probably his last gasp of being a true movie star, Noah?
Yes, I did.
I've not seen Noah. I've heard it's a little wacky.
It is.
Okay.
So when I first watched the preview to it, I'm like, obviously we all know the biblical story, but obviously we don't know a lot of the ins and outs.
Sure.
And
open to interpretation, I guess.
Right. Like what? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot you could do with that.
Yes.
And yeah, they went weird with it. And it was goofy, and he's Noah.
Yeah.
But he kind of isn't that great.
Yeah. Flawed. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I know
it's like, why are you God's chosen dude?
I'll watch it eventually whenever I have the chance, but it's not one of those things that I probably lost my opportunity whenever it first came out, and now it's probably past the time to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't care for it. I guess one interesting aspect is like you have to think about, okay, once the flood waters are rising, yeah, there's going to be like bands of people trying to jump on your boat and take it over and stuff like that.
That's interesting. I think there's a lot of interesting aspects from what I understand. Is like there's rock monsters and stuff, like goofy stuff like that. So,
it went too goofy. I think if you went more,
how would this been in a realistic aspect?
Right, like how did Hurricane Katrina go?
Gotcha. That makes more sense.
Yes. I mean, that would probably be.
That makes sense.
But I don't know. But yes, I've seen it.
Okay, so I think this is the last movie he's made that was really great. It's a comedy. I think we talked about it on our, I think their Drive episode with Ryan Gosling, The Nice Guys. It's him and Ryan Gosling are private detectives, and it's in LA, and Kim Basinger's actually in it too. You have seen it?
Yep.
Okay. I really like it. It's fun. Good times. Had by all. Okay. So now we've gone into, so I got two more. So this one I wanted to include because it's the first movie I remember. I believe this is the first movie that came out in theaters following the COVID pandemic. It is a road rage movie starring Russell Crowe called Unhinged. It's essentially he's a mentally disturbed guy, and a lady cuts him off, and he's not going to have it. And
is it like Falling Down?
Yeah, but more along the lines of he's the villain as opposed to like the lady.
The guy who's just lost it.
The guy who loses it. So I'm not surprised. It didn't do great. I mean,
I haven't seen it.
It was mostly just one of those things. It's like, hey, this is a movie out in movie theaters. I don't think anybody went and saw it, but I mean, same thing. So the last movie I saw was a couple weeks ago. It's on Apple TV Plus right now. It's called The Greatest Beer Run Ever.
I have heard about it.
Yes.
I watched a documentary on it.
Yes. So,
but I haven't watched the movie.
So it is Zac Efron plays a guy who is a merchant marine and goes on a foolish quest to give his buddies beer who are stationed in Vietnam. And Crowe plays a photojournalist. Doesn't really have much to do in the movie. Has one spot in the movie where you're like, he really brings it. Really is like, ooh, there's the good stuff. Like that's the Crowe I know. Still does some random stuff around, and I'm not surprised if you do catch it. It's not a bad movie. So
I'm gonna check that one out because, like I said, I saw that documentary. It's a pretty good story.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story
and a true story.
Efron does really well. So you went. Let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You went 10 for the first 10. Yes. and then
it fell apart.
Then you fell apart. You went 2 for the next 8. So 12 out of 18. That's it's it's really not bad. So a pretty decent Russell Crowe knowledge. All right, so we are in the same room. Though I guess I will still figure out a way. It is that time, Jake.
You are in the hot box, sir.
Each episode, instead of me steering the conversation, Jake peppers me with a series of questions that I must answer truthfully. Sometimes it's trivia, sometimes it is not. What you got?
Well, see, normally I would read you your rights. And in this movie,
there's no Miranda.
It's pre-Miranda.
Pre-Miranda, and they do not care like you. It's like,
but it wouldn't matter anyway.
It wouldn't matter. No, I know.
Yeah. Okay, so there's pretty epic shootout in this movie.
Yes, there is.
Between
Exley White and the corrupt cops.
Yes. And so pretty good gunfight. And we kind of talked about it earlier, is like the realism of reloads, magazine capacities, how much ammo you got, that kind of stuff. So I love a good shootout.
Yep.
But can you name me one of the worst movie portrayals of a shootout that you can think of? As far as just the
realism of trigger of like 1,000
endless ammo and
now you pointed, I wouldn't have thought of it, but you pointed out Open Range, a good movie that is
great shootout.
It's endless supply of bullets.
But yeah, it's infinity guns.
Yes. Man, it's funny. I think about it. So I would point to Bad Boys 2.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
Any Michael Bay movie. The Rock is a good one where you're just like, man, how much are you going to just fire indiscriminately? Nobody ever changes a magazine. It's just always like, it's always semi-automatic. It's a never-ending burst of fire. Like there's no aim. It just keeps squeezing.
Right.
Outside of Open Range, is Open Range the one you were thinking of specifically, or? I can't even necessarily think of one that's like, man, egregious, because half the time when it's egregious, I mean, you can point to like Commando,
right? Then it's not really a serious
Rambo,
movie.
First Blood Part 2, anything like that. Like,
right.
True Lies is a great one, as far as like, they shoot an unlimited amount of ammo at all times, and they never reload. I don't think it's ever a factor. Stuff like that. So I more than anything, whenever it's specifically very like realistic as far as trigger discipline, reloading, all that kind of stuff, it's more notable than anything else.
Yes. And I mean, that's my next question. And we talked about that earlier, but what's the best shootouts that you've seen?
So there was a movie from the mid-90s called The Way of the Gun. With Ryan Phillippe and Benicio del Toro, and they're kind of ne'er-do-well bank robbers, or kind of bandits. And near the end of the movie, they have this very epic shootout in a corral, and everything is shoot, reload, shoot, reload, shoot. And if you were to keep track of it all, then the bullets keep, except one specific point. Whenever a guy is ducking and they keep shooting, and he kind of goes, that's weird. Why do they how do they still have bullets? Like, he's waiting for them to reload and it never happens. But it's specifically like, okay, it's pointed to specifically.
Right.
The club shootout in the first John Wick is probably the go-to, as far as like, he's got trigger discipline. He reloads, he fires. He knows how much he has. He knows when he reloads quickly.
He moves for the most part. I mean, I know it's a movie, but he moves like a tactician.
Yes.
And in real life, he is a highly trained gun guy. He does
tactical training.
Tactical pistol tactical pistol
Yes.
competitions and stuff like that. He trains with Terran Tactical, which is a big company and everything. And so from my understanding, for the John Wick movies, he was like, okay, if I'm gonna be a badass,
I'm gonna look like
I want to be a badass.
And it looks true to form. Like,
his reloads are.
I would also point out Heat. The movie Heat. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it. There's a bank robbery sequence. Apparently, there is a part of the movie where Val Kilmer is shooting forward, shooting behind, shooting forward, reloads quickly, shooting forward to cover both ends. And apparently, they show that in tactical classes as a way to cover yourself and reload at the same time. And Val Kilmer said it's one of his most prized things, the fact that he is like it's like, hey, that's right, I did that. Of course, Val Kilmer also on that level of like commitment of like, well, I got to learn how to do this type of thing. He looks right.
And something else I'll just say real quick about shootouts in movies is like, there is one scene. Well, I guess it was the shootout scene in this where he hits him with a shotgun and he just goes out the window. There's a scene in the shootout in Open Range where he just blows this guy through a door. Well, if you know anything about physics,
you would have to receive that in order to
action.
Give that. Yes. So if
equal but opposite.
If you were to shoot a shotgun and it throw you back 10 feet, that should in turn put that person back 10 feet. So yes, it's always just a fun little.
I like it though.
Yeah, it's
I would love to blow a guy out of a
once
window.
I saw him go through the window, I went, like, what are you gonna do?
Well, I think the same thing in open range. I'm
Yeah.
like, I still love it.
It doesn't matter. And I mean,
It's still good.
and they do. And I think they've done it in John Wick movies too.
Oh, yeah.
Now at the same time, I think he is like shooting high-powered rifles, and guys get hit and fly across the room. It's obviously still a little different. It still wouldn't do that, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you've got to make it.
It's still fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Have you ever been to LA?
I have not been to LA. I've been to a lot of California, San Francisco area, San Diego a few times, but I've never been to LA. Not any like specific reason. Now these days,
Yeah.
it's just such a big place. Like,
Yeah. It doesn't sound real appealing nowadays.
not these days. I mean, it's,
Not from what I hear.
it's just the LA in this movie is the LA on the rise, and like they're developing a freeway and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's a different type of LA. It doesn't even seem all that congested.
Yeah.
It seems pretty. I'm not sure if that's the reality of 1950s Los Angeles, but regardless,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's very reminiscent of Dragnet.
Yes,
That's what it-
very much so. Yes.
yeah.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've only been to LAX. I've only been to the airport. Why do you think cop movies are so freaking popular? Why are cop movies such a big thing?
It's so because we love the idea of an idealized hero that is a normal person.
Mhm.
A cop is a regular guy in theory.
Right.
It's a regular person who is not anything special and becomes
Flawed human
a
being.
flawed human being who becomes a police officer for the right reasons.
Mhm.
Because there's like, it's about justice and it's about service and all this, all the it's such an American ideal of a profession to be like, I want to serve I want to protect and serve.
Right.
And there's the noble idea, and it's probably a flawed ideal
Yeah.
because it's like, well, humanity seeps into that. And if we want to have that, don't have that flawed ideal, why don't we pay them better? Or
Right.
why don't
Yeah,
we
yeah.
all this kind of like, so there's 1,000 things like that. And half the cop movies are half corrupt cop movies.
They're almost always
Like, so think of the great
dirty cop
Think
movies.
of great cop movies.
Training Day.
Colors, Training Day, Serpico, this, American Gangster.
Yeah.
It's yes, they were good cops, but they were bad cops too.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that. And I mean, it's kind of a microcosm of human nature. It's like, look at these guys with too much power, how they corrupt it. And look at these guys with the power who know how to do it correctly.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
it's that captivating push-pull of the two. So that's
Kind of that people still want there to be heroes out
they
there.
still want to be heroes, and they want them to be normal people, and they want them
Right.
but
still, yeah, kind of blue collar dudes.
yeah, that's I think that's an aspect of Copland, the great one.
Copland, yeah.
But I mean, if you think of they're just guys, and like you said, blue collar guys. It doesn't it's how much of being a police officer is desk work, is paperwork. In reality, it's I mean compared to but you don't think of police they're beat cops, they're officers, they have badges, they mean something.
Yeah.
And so I guess the idealized version of what we want America to be.
Right.
And so it just, and now if I'm trying to think if there's anything that there's a cop movie where I guess Bad Boys, weirdly. I don't think any cops.
Like where there's no corruption.
Yeah.
I
was trying to think.
End of Watch.
End of Watch is a good one. Yeah, that's a great example.
That was, to me, and I was still a cop at the time that I watched it. To me, that was a refreshing cop movie.
Yeah.
Because all the cops were good.
Yeah.
Now there might be an asshole cop.
Sure.
Or, this,
But nobody's breaking the law.
No one's corrupt.
Yes.
No one's
Yes.
a big racist or anything
Yes.
like that. It's
Yeah.
they're all good guys trying to do their job.
And it was so rare. Like it's so rare in films, like
From film, yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a microcosm of America being like some are good, some are bad, and the good are going to win out.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess the drama or the controversy or because it's like Backdraft. Okay, that's a movie about firefighter corruption.
And
it's
you're
like,
come on, like how corrupt can you get? Like how corrupt can firefighters be? Like
yeah. And I mean, but that's the funny thing is that I think there is pushback to that. Like we can't have dirty firefighters. But it's like, oh, a dirty cop movie? I'll go watch that.
But like in general, like you think of like Ladder 49. It's like, nope, these are all heroes, and they're all heroes. And it's like, okay, well, where's the conflict if they're all heroes?
That is
and
true.
It's always like, oh, they're fighting nature. It's like, okay, but like we need human conflict, and all cop movies are human conflict.
And that is a good point. Now that you mention it, that there's not a lot of firefighter movies because it's like
Ladder 49 and Backdraft are pretty much the only ones.
That's almost it. I mean, they made one about wildfire, like
Only the Brave.
Jumpers.
Yeah, but that's the same thing. It's man against nature. It's not
right.
It's not corruption.
And I think most people can probably identify with the conflict of man versus man much better than they can man versus nature. Most people aren't going to fight fires.
I want to apologize. There is another firefighter movie. I can't believe I've not mentioned Howie Long's Firestorm, where he is I believe he is he's a smoke jumper, I think, and he's fighting villains in a burning forest.
Oh God.
Starring Howie Long.
Wow.
So I mean, what do you expect? So
wait, I can think of another firefighter movie. Kevin James and Adam Sandler, where they pretend to be gay.
I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry.
Yeah,
yes,
they're both firefighters.
Oh man. I'm sorry, Ladder 49 and Backdraft. How dare we exclude you?
Yeah.
I would love to see a list of firefighter movies and make sure that I now pronounce. I'm going to go on there and change the Wikipedia entry if firefighter movies doesn't have. I now pronounce you Chuck and Larry. My God.
Right.
Oh, jeez.
So you've already said this is one of your favorite movies
Absolutely.
Of all time. Is this your favorite cop movie?
Yes. Okay, so I go back and forth there are two movies in the 90s that I love more than any others. It's LA Confidential and Out of Sight. Out of Sight is a cops, robbers.
Okay.
It's Jennifer Lopez is a U.S. Marshal, and George Clooney is an escaped convict, and they have a romance / got a cat and mouse type of thing.
Yeah, Catch Me If You Can kind of a thing.
We'll do that eventually. Because I don't think you've ever seen it. It's the best Jennifer Lopez has ever been and ever will be. She will never be better. Everything about it works.
Better than Anaconda?
Excuse me. Second best she'll ever be.
Okay.
In any movie where John Voight plays a Colombian, you got to get on board with. So, I mean, it's not necessarily a cop movie, but it has a lot of cop aspects to it.
Yeah.
This has got to be number one as far as like cops are 90% of the characters.
Yeah.
So this is that one. Because the others that I would be like, okay, I would include those in my favorite movies of all time. This is the only one that's like, okay, this is very cop centric. Out of Sight is not necessarily about the cops. It's more about the romantic relationship.
Right. Yeah. Okay, last one.
Okay.
Did Kevin Spacey do it? Sorry, I couldn't resist.
I'm sure.
I'll leave it alone.
You don't have to leave it alone. I'm sure he did it. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. As this, like, the difference is that like he has not shown any sort of remorse or anything throughout.
Only like bizarre posts and stuff. Like after
you're like, okay, well, this guy is unhinged, or he has nobody in his life saying, "Oh God, don't do this."
Yeah.
So
Because like he even took on his character for like House of Cards and then like put out a statement.
It was like truly baffling.
Okay.
Like you know what you don't do whenever this stuff happens? All the stuff he's doing.
Yeah.
So it's essentially, it seems like a dangerously ill man. Who probably did all the stuff he did.
Yeah. I think that boy's cheese done slid off his cracker.
That's a good way to put it. Cheese slid off his cracker, yes, sir. I agree.
All right, Ben. Well, instead of hitting you with blackjack, I'll just let you go.
I appreciate
You're free to go.
I appreciate that. Before we go, Jake, what is your film rating for LA Confidential? Your first time ever watching it?
Yep. First time ever watching it. Excellent. I loved it.
I love it more than anything in the world. So I have a difficult time saying this is my favorite movie ever. Not because it's because I have a flaw with it or anything like that. I just have a difficult time discerning what is.
Well, it kind of depends on the mood that you're in.
If you were to say, so if you're left on a desert island, you get to watch 3 movies. LA Confidential is going to be in the mix.
You're right.
It's definitely going to be on there.
It's kind of like the Mount Rushmore analogy we talked about. Like
on the Mount Rushmore of movies for me, it's up there.
Right.
Do I think it is the best movie ever made? No.
Right.
Do I think it's my favorite movie?
Yeah.
Probably yes.
Yeah.
So 5 out of 5.
Nice.
Hard to deny. And it's like I said, everything about the structure, everything about it, like the director died a couple years ago, so I have nostalgia for how great he was in that. Young Guy Pearce, and we don't talk enough about Guy Pearce's eyes whenever James Cromwell says Rollo Tomasi, and he does this widen but not widen too much.
And that's how do you act without doing anything? He nails it.
He nails it so well. He's like, I have to widen my eyes because I realize what's going on, but I can't widen it too much because it's going to realize what's going on. And then it's so
that is a great scene.
Exceptional. It's an exceptional scene. I found the GIF of it, and I'll probably post it on our Twitter.
Yeah,
it's so great. Yeah,
I agree. That was a good little piece of acting there.
Exceptionally well done. The only main cast member has never been nominated for an Oscar. Kim Basinger has 1. Kevin Spacey has 2. Russell Crowe has 1. James Cromwell has a nomination. Danny DeVito has a nomination. And Guy Pearce putting in good work.
What was he?
Memento is the big one. Memento is the big one that everybody remembers. Still putting in a lot of good work, a lot of good still Australian movies. Check out it might be one up your alley. A movie called The Rover.
The Rover. It's
a kind of post-apocalyptic, and he's kind of a nut. And Robert Pattinson's in it. Actually, the first time I ever Robert Pattinson might be a good actor. So check that one out. But LA Confidential, I love it. And I'm so glad we are actually able to talk about it. I think that just about does it for this episode of the Film Critic of the Common Man. Thanks so very much for joining us. You can follow me on Twitter at NebezBen and Letterboxd at Nebek10, on Instagram at Ben Miller Movies. Check out my website, icecreamforfreaks.com. You can follow my other writing on film experience with Cinema Scholars. It's about Oscar season. We're about to start getting into a bunch of Oscar volleys. I did one last week on the film experience with a guy, a great writer over there named Nick Taylor. We talked about best editing, the stupid category that is. Got more reviews coming out this week. Find me on other pods as I'm the David Thewlis of podcasting. Jake, where can the people find you? The Frolic Room, putting a 50 on a glass of scotch.
I think I'm going to get drunk at a Christmas party and go beat up some Mexicans.
And then maybe, God willing, you'll end up with a prostitute in Bisbee, Arizona.
Hell yeah. Works for me.
Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Critic Common Pod. Please like, subscribe, rate, and review. Enjoy the show wherever you get your podcast. We very much appreciate all your patronage. It is December coming up, and we are going to do Christmas movies, and we are going to kick it off in style next week with National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. We're going to have a blast with that one. We'll catch y'all next time.
What's the trick? What's the trick? In making my love stick. What's the trick?